Lean in close. What if I told you that the very first family on Earth, the very first brothers to ever walk this planet, couldn't even make it without one of them killing the other? No war, no army, no weapons of mass destruction. Just two brothers, one field, and a jealousy so hot it changed the world forever. This is not just an old story from an old book. This is a story about you, about me, about every human being who has ever looked at someone else's life and whispered, "Why them? Why not me?" Are you ready? Because once this story starts, you won't be able to look away. After Adam and Eve were sent out of the Garden of Eden, life was hard, really hard. No supermarkets, no running water, no comfortable bed to sleep in, just open land, wild animals, and a sky full of stars that reminded them every night of the paradise they had lost. But life still moved forward, because that's what life does. Eve became pregnant, and when the baby came, she held him up and cried tears of joy. She named him Cain. Then came another baby, softer eyes, gentler hands. She named him Abel. Two boys, same mother, same father, same home, but from the very beginning they were completely different. Cain was the firstborn, strong, proud, and hard-working. He loved the earth. He dug his hands into the soil and planted seeds and watched things grow. Farming was his identity. The land was his kingdom. Abel was a shepherd. He walked the hills with his sheep, talking to them softly, protecting them from wolves, lying under the open sky at night, listening to the wind. He was quiet, peaceful, the kind of person animals trusted and people loved. On the outside, they looked like a perfect family, but something was already brewing beneath the surface. One day, both brothers decided to bring an offering to God. This was a big deal. An offering was not just a gift. It was a message. It was a way of saying, "God, I see you. I honor you. Here is the very best of what I have." Cain went first. He gathered fruits and vegetables from his harvest and laid them before God. Then Abel brought something different. He didn't just bring any sheep from his flock. He brought the firstborn, the very best one, the fattest, finest lamb, and he offered it with his whole heart. And then God responded. He accepted Abel's offering. But Cain's offering? Silence. Nobody fully knows why. Some say Abel gave his absolute best, the first and finest, while Cain gave what was convenient. Some say it wasn't just what they gave, but how they gave it, the condition of their hearts in that moment. Whatever the reason, God accepted one brother and not the other. And that is where everything fell apart. Cain's face changed. Have you ever seen someone's face change when they don't get something they feel they deserved? When someone else gets the promotion, the praise, the applause, and they're left standing there with nothing? That's exactly what happened to Cain. His jaw tightened, his eyes went cold, his fists curled slowly at his sides. The Bible says his face fell. And God, who sees everything, looked at Cain and asked him something remarkable. He didn't ignore him. He didn't walk away. He leaned in and said, "Cain, why are you angry? Why does your face look like that? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted?" And then God said something that should have stopped everything. Sin is crouching at your door. It wants you, but you must master it. God was warning him like a good father watching his son walk towards the edge of a cliff, crying out, "Stop, turn around, you still have a choice." But Cain didn't stop. He looked at his brother, his own flesh and blood, his little brother who had done nothing wrong, and instead of dealing with what was inside his own heart, he made a decision. He said, "Abel, let's go out to the field." And Abel, sweet, trusting Abel, smiled and said, "Okay." He had no idea at all. Out in the field, away from everyone, Cain turned on his brother, and he killed him. Just like that, the first death in human history. Not from sickness, not from old age, not from an accident, but from jealousy, from a heart that looked at someone else's blessing and couldn't stand it. The field went quiet. The birds stopped singing. The wind seemed to hold its breath. And Abel, the gentle shepherd who had never hurt a single soul, lay still on the ground. Cain stood there, alone, breathing hard. And then God's voice came again. "Cain, where is your brother Abel?" God already knew. God always knows, but he asked because God gives people the chance to come clean, to be honest, to say, "I made a terrible mistake." But Cain looked up and said something that has echoed through all of human history. "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Is it my job to look after him?" And God said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground." Can you imagine that? Blood crying? The earth itself was a witness. The ground had swallowed the evidence, yes, but the ground had also told on him. You cannot hide from what you've done. The earth remembers. God looked at Cain and delivered his sentence. "You are cursed. The ground that swallowed your brother will no longer work for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth, never finding home, never finding rest." And something cracked inside Cain, because that is when the reality hit him. Not when he raised his hand against his brother, not when Abel fell, not even when God first called his name, but now when he understood that everything he had built his identity around was gone. He was a farmer. The ground was his life, and now the ground would reject him. He cried out, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Anyone who finds me will kill me." And in one of the most mysterious moments in this entire story, God showed mercy, even to the murderer. God placed a mark on Cain, not a mark of shame, but a mark of protection, saying, "No one will touch him," because even in judgment, God does not stop being God. Cain walked away into the land of wandering, away from his family, away from the presence of God, carrying something invisible but impossibly heavy: guilt. And here is where I really want you to listen. This story is not just about two brothers thousands of years ago. This story is about the oldest battle in the human heart. The battle between what we feel and what we choose. Cain felt rejected. That feeling was real. But feeling rejected doesn't mean you are rejected. It doesn't mean the next chapter of your story is over. God literally told him, "Do better and you'll be accepted." The door was still open. But instead of looking inward at what he could change about himself, Cain looked outward at his brother, and he decided that removing Abel would solve the problem in his heart. It never does. It never has. It never will. because the problem was never Abel. The problem was the crouching thing at the door that God warned him about. That quiet, dangerous voice that whispers, "You deserve more than him. You're better than him. He's the reason your life isn't working." And when we listen to that voice, we don't just hurt others, we destroy ourselves. Two brothers. One chose gratitude and gave his best. One chose resentment and gave what was easy. One was remembered as a man of faith. One was remembered as the first man to take a life. And the saddest part of the whole story, Cain could have been remembered differently. He had every chance to turn around, but he didn't. The question this story leaves with every single one of us is simple. When jealousy crouches at your door, what will you